Always a favourite on every rural road. Hyundai Country Calendar.
Make it meaty, that's my motto.
Richard wanted to go farming.
The first year I had this place, I was like a big smile on my face.
It had its challenges.
When you start putting your hand on them, they seem to get a bit stroppy.
Then he and wife Bridget bought a kiwifruit orchard in the King Country.
And people kind of look sideways and go, what? What are you doing?
Well, the Wanganui River is such a beautiful part of where we are. I used to farm on the other side of the river and row across it every day. And I went to work with the dogs and whatnot. It's just beautiful, and it's nice to see it each day when we go to work. It's sort of got a peacefulness about it.
Richard Neeson has been farming sheep and cattle on the banks of the Wanganui River for 23 years. While Richard runs the farm, for the last 13 years, his wife Bridget has managed their kiwifruit orchard down the road. While the farm occupies 400 hectares, kiwifruit take up just 4. Before the harvest can start, Bridget and family have a major job.
We're thinning today. Fruit that goes for export has to be a really nice shape and size. That's a nice shape and size there. If they're too flat, or they're too small, or they have any insect damage on, we can't effectively sell them in the overseas market. They don't look pretty in people's fruit bowls. So they go back into our ground, we mulch them up, and it stays on the property and feeds the soil, but also we're not wasting time and resources harvesting them and then trucking them, and then somebody's sorting them, and then they get put in a reject bin.
There's one part of this job Bridget hates.
The sound of the fruit hitting the ground. So when there's one person picking and there's the odd thud, it's not quite so bad. You get 6 people and it really sounds like it's raining fruit. And it's a little alarming. You know, I almost have this impulse to look behind me and go, what are they putting on the ground?
The Neeson's orchard is almost unique. Kiwifruit are normally grown in the warm Bay of Plenty, not hundreds of kilometres away deep in the King Country. But this remote corner of the Wanganui River has its own microclimate.
We are a little bit warmer here than the rest of the typical King Country temperatures. With the cliffs over here, the rocks warm up quite nicely, especially with the reflection of the water off the river, which just gives us probably a couple of degrees of warming. We're surrounded on 3 sides by the river, which is beneficial in a couple of ways. There's several rapids, so there's a bit of air movement, which is really helpful for frost protection. We're down quite low and surrounded by hills and lots of native bush, so that's a little dell within the valley, as it were. It's nice and warm in the summer, not too much wind, and very slightly warmer in the winter.
The Bay of Plenty may be the home of kiwifruit, but the first kiwifruit seeds came from China to Wanganui in 1904.
There was kiwifruit probably along the river many years before they were grown commercially, because the river used to be the highway, really, and there were boats going up and down every few days, and people had groceries delivered and stock went out. We weren't quite as isolated. It was almost as we are now, in some respects.
One of the first vines in the country was planted on what is now the Neeson's orchard.
By all accounts, the chap I met in town, he was only young and he couldn't put his arms around that vine. So, you know, when the orchard was set up, sort of knew the kiwifruit would grow here.
This corner of the river may have its own microclimate, but it still gets frosts. The Neesons have their own unique form of frost fighting.
Oh, there we go. That's all right. For a good part of the year, a frost is fine, and we want chilling hours, which are under 7 degrees. There's a few key times, like just before harvest, and when the leaves have just come out in the spring, where we really don't want a frost. Critical times. So we have to try and prevent them. So we light fires. Generally about 2 degrees, we'll think, right, time to light the fires. If it's a crystal clear night like tonight, then there's a good chance we'll get a frost. Sometimes that means sitting up for a good part of the night, keeping an eye on it. But it seems to work. We get a lot of smoke.
There's a lot of heat generated from a bale of hay. It smoulders all night, sometimes into the next day.
Should do it. We knew that other people lit fires, but it was generally diesel, and we didn't really like the idea of burning a whole pile of diesel. I mean, we're talking, you know, litres and litres and litres of it. And this is more environment friendly and sustainable, I suppose. It's just dry grass.
The youngest of 4 boys, Richard didn't grow up on a farm, but he was given a pet lamb when he was barely out of nappies.
David Bowie, that's what I called it, because it's the sound it made. I was pretty young then, so yeah, the lamb, it was good. Bit of an outdoor boy, I guess. Yeah, always loved the outdoors. Not much of an indoor chap. I guess it goes back to, you know, Mum and Dad were always in the outdoors, you know, either up the mountain or at the beach or doing something, you know, playing around with the kids. Always wanted to be outdoors. We had a chance to go and to make our own phone and, you know, pick up a bit of wood and make something. Dad made a boat and we rode around in that all the time. We used that for fishing and, you know, we learned all those water sports, rowing, we did water skiing.
Richard's mum had grown up in smoggy London.
The opportunities she saw out here to enjoy the outdoors and enjoy the fresh air and the water and all the beautiful things about outdoors, and sort of encouraged all us kids to do all that too. And to a point, I guess that's why I went farming.
But with no farming background, that seemed an impossible dream. Instead, he trained as a teacher.
After teaching for a bit, I decided I wanted to go farming, so I always sort of had that in the back of my mind. Hello, where I go? Where I go back? Worked my way up into different, you know, leases and farms, and then eventually came to this place, which was really awesome because I never thought I'd own this sort of contour. The first year I had this place, I was like a big smile on my face. Yeah, I just come out, it was just awesome. It's a really good farm. Yeah, I love it. It's cool.
While Richard loves farming, he's brought in his son Dorian and his girlfriend Sophie to share the load. Richard Neeson has stepped back from doing everything on his farm on the upper Whanganui River. His son Dorian and Dorian's girlfriend Sophie Barnes now manage the stock.
So you have to get the bees in now?
Scoot around the top and bring them down through the lane.
Dorian grew up here. He went away for a 2-year ag course and is now back on the farm. Sophie grew up in England. She realised sheep farming was going to be a lifelong passion when she was 17.
Grew up in a town, nothing to do with animals. And just by chance I ended up at a college that had a farm and actually work experience for an animal course, and ended up on the farm. And yeah, I lambed this sheep at 3 a.m. this morning. The lamb was stuck and it was the first time I'd done it, and I pulled this lamb out, saved its life, put it in front of Mum, and the lamb shakes its head and they flop and they make this really cute bleating noise, and that was it. That was the moment of, wow, this is me. This is for the rest of my life. This is me. I look at a sheep the same way I look at a dog. I love being around them, I love petting them, I love learning about them. People think they're stupid, but they're not. They're a wild animal that we've domesticated, and I just love looking at them. I sound a real idiot saying that.
While she was still just 17, Sophie got selected for a 5-day boot camp and competition, a little like Young Farmer of the Year.
We had 5 days of dairy farming, sheep and beef farming, cropping, challenges, boot camp. It was baptism of fire, but it actually gave me the confidence. I had no really farming experience before that. I just knew I loved sheep, and that gave me the confidence to be like, right, I love sheep and I'm going to do something about it.
And she did. Hearing that New Zealand sheep farmers were among the best in the world, she saved up and bought a one-way ticket. She enjoys working the farm's Dorset sheep, even though Richard says they're a sheep with attitude.
They're probably the most disliked sheep for shearers. I always say they try to move 3 ways at once. You just got to be patient with them, and I normally give the shearers a beer or maybe a bit of a bonus when they come here because they're going to do less sheep on the stand. But so sort of for that reason we've gone to once a year shearing. You've done well, mate. You're looking good.
Yeah, they come out all right through that dry spell.
Richard sells all his lambs to an American chain, Whole Foods.
That's more of a sort of organic, naturally raised type market in the States, and the Americans love the big cuts. You know, we're 18 kilos hooked up through to 24 for that market. Big is better, that's right. Big and meaty, that's my motto. Why would you want any other sort of meat? And, you know, we're all approved with Global Gap. You know, we get audited every 2 years. So they just come along and make sure that we're handling the sheep right, that we're naturally raised with grass, that we're using our animal health remedies correctly. The sheep are being treated well in the yards. It even goes as far as welfare for our dogs. They come and inspect the kennels, make sure they're warm and tidy and the water's all good, and also that they're treating our staff right as well.
So we're scanning the sheep today, see if they're singles or twins or even triplets, just so we can manage them better. And then I'm also body condition scoring, so just measuring how fat or not fat they are.
What are you marking, 2 and below?
So there's 4 body condition scores, and it's judged by the fat on their back and the cover on their ribs. Most of ours are around a 3.5 at 4, because we've got very fat sheep.
Technician Rochelle O'Hara has just got herself a flash new scanning trailer.
Twin. Got my ultrasound probe, and I'm just, once the ewe comes in, I'm just tucking it up on the bare piece of skin between her udder and her right leg, and then I'm just scanning all the way forward. So I'm just looking for fluid, the fluid sac with the baby, with the lamb inside, or 1 or 2 lambs.
These days, computers are a vital aid to farming, and Sophie's found a lot of support online. Her Twitter handle is Sheepish Sophie, and she now has 9,500 followers.
I was so blown away by the ag community on Twitter. Like, you just don't think it's there, but it is, and there's so many people, so many farmers, and they were really my mentors for the first 10 years. If I had a question, I didn't have someone I could go to, so I just tweeted it, and 6 farmers from around the world would answer in 15 minutes, and so then I have my answer. So I think B-twins in the hills.
Sheepish Sophie's online profile got her photo onto the cover of Countrywide magazine, which Dorian happened to read.
Then I didn't realise until the day I'd gotten the magazine that was on the cover. And yeah, you'd seen it?
Yeah, I thought she's a bit all right.
Yeah, and that's history.
The day before the kiwifruit harvest starts, the pickers arrive. They'll stay on the orchard for the week.
Oh, welcome everybody. You had a big long drive.
The orchard is free of the kiwifruit disease PSA. Bridget aims to keep it that way.
It's a disease that hit New Zealand, the kiwifruit industry, a few years ago, probably because of our isolation and a bit of luck and a bit of management. We're lucky enough to have not got it yet. It's really hard on the plants. We're really careful that we don't bring in any tools or equipment. We have our own picking bags, our own loppers and everything, and we're really careful that we spray people's footwear when they come in, and we find out where people have been. And our biggest thing is the isolation. I think it's 200 kilometres to the nearest other kiwifruit orchard.
Tomorrow the pickers will get stuck in. The Whanganui River is well known for its misty mornings.
The mist comes in every day in the winter, unless it's raining. And sometimes it clears by 9 o'clock, sometimes it's 12 o'clock. But on the whole, it protects us. Before we've harvested, it's really good protection against frost, so we don't grizzle too much.
Kiwifruit can't be picked in the rain, so Bridget is thrilled that the forecast is good.
It's a huge relief. Yes, we've started, so really good and quite exciting. We've got a fantastic gang this year. 4 days and we'll be done.
I like to put my eye on the fruit as it goes in the bin. That last time, I just follow along and get in the way generally at the last minute. I just look busy, just to make sure it goes out looking as I'd like it to look.
Soon after buying the orchard, the Neesons decided to go organic.
It was really easy. We didn't think we're going to go organic. We got here and the first year we did everything that was on the list that the previous owner told us to do. And a few of the things we thought, I don't really like doing that. There was a few chemicals and we had to put protective clothing on.
There was one spray I put on, and when I was cleaning the machine out, the sprayer out, it sort of contacted a bit much and I had to go and lie down for a bit. After that I was like, oh well, I don't think I really want to do that anymore.
So the next year we didn't do it, and we thought, what's the worst that can happen? And a few things we didn't get quite right. And then after another year, people were talking about organics and we looked at it and we thought, actually we're doing it. So let's do the paperwork that goes with this and do it properly.
Bridget's found a way to use waste wool from the sheep farm on the orchard.
Well, we found that we need something for weed control, and of course we're not using any glyphosate, so it's a lot of cutting of grass, and the wool works as a weed mat, I guess. It keeps the moisture in the soil, which was helpful over this hot, dry summer, and it's 50% carbon, about 15% nitrogen, and it rots down nicely. This wool is from sheep on our property. There's only 20 of them on this little area. It's quite safe to use. They haven't had any dip on them or anything that would make them non-organic.
When Richard and Bridget decided to buy the orchard, they knew nothing about growing kiwifruit.
It was really evident in our first few years. We learnt the hard way through everything. But the packhouse have been fantastic actually. We have advisors that come down umpteen times a year and will teach you anything you want to know. This is called trunk girdling. Now it took us several years to build up the courage to do this because I was really worried about killing the vines. But people have been doing it for a long time and it works. It improves the taste of the fruit and it improves the size of the fruit. And what it does is it keeps all the nutrients up the top and gives the fruit a real boost rather than feeding the roots. So it heals within 2 weeks. We can see healed grafts here. If it stayed as a cavity like this, it tells me I've done it wrong. I haven't got the depth right and it won't heal.
The Neeson's fruit is on its way to Trevelyan's packhouse in Te Puke for grading, packing and exporting.
Quite a bit of our fruit last year went to Singapore and then some into Europe and the rest into America. So, yeah, the Asian market, believe it or not, are quite fussy, especially the Japanese. They're into form and beauty and part of their way of life. You know, it's cool to know that your fruit ends up on the other side of the world and, you know, people are enjoying it. Yeah, it's cool.
Mount Ruapehu was the attraction when Richard's parents moved the family to Raurimu when he was young. 3 years ago, he came back to the village to invest in a new venture, Slalom Lodge, a backpackers for trampers, skiers and ski field workers. Richard gets bored sitting still and the lodge offered a challenge.
When the opportunity came my way, I thought, well, you know, Dorian's kind of got the farm in hand and Bridget's kind of got the orchard going on, so well, I'll have a crack at this. When I came here, it was a big task to get the place up and running after being empty for 3 years, and there was a lot to do, a lot to tidy up.
Besides beds for 100, Slalom Lodge boasts a bar and restaurant.
Okay, all right. How are you guys tonight, okay?
Yeah, good,
The restaurant and bar really caters to the locals, local shepherds and farm owners. Been really good. Some of them are friends, so it's always a bit hard to keep track of the drinks because you're kind of giving your friend a drink sort of thing. 2 Waikatos and 2 Spades. Yeah. Well, boys, I'll chuck it all on Dean's tab. Yeah. What about your one, Daniel? On his one? Yeah. You know, I'm quite happy to serve them and be part of their Friday night relaxation, and it's really good for them to have a place to come to, and they get a chance to come together and, you know, discuss the woes of farming or the great things about farming. But yeah, it's good to see them, and I love catching up with them, and it's good fun.
Richard's parents bought a place near the mountain so they could go skiing. And for Richard, the sport has become a lifetime love.
It's probably my main sport. I spend a couple of months a year skiing, either in New Zealand or overseas. The freedom of skiing, that's what I like. You know, similar to the work, really. I like to make my own decisions. And you know, this is a beautiful mountain up here. Yeah, I really love skiing. It's taken up racing over the last 20 or 30 years. It's always good to be faster than the next person. I love it. Love defying gravity. It's always a challenge.
With the river at their front door and the mountain at their back, the Neesons love it here.
It's an amazing place to be, actually, and it's constantly changing and a little slice of paradise.
We can come down here to the beach and have a swim in the river and jump in the boat, go for a blast and enjoy it with the family and friends that come and visit. It's awesome. And it's just a perfect place to spend a good part of your life.
Country Calendar was brought to you by Hyundai New Zealand.